What do you guys want to talk about? Anything in particular?
Yeah, quickly, just decision making, whether to fly in front of a ridge or down the valley. I was there was Mittamatite to my northeast, so I was sort of south of Mitta.
Oh, yeah.
And the wind was coming from the south, so blowing up the hill. I didn't know if there was going to be too much rotor or anything if I went across the valley, like down that valley to get to Pine Mountain.
Just yesterday?
Yeah, this is yesterday.
You were south of Mitta.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just got turn point 1 and was heading down to Pine Mountain.
Oh, so this is not yesterday, the day before.
Alright, could have been. Yeah, it was the day before.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously decision making is a very big topic. That's what keeps us flying and keeps us safe and helps you win also. So, obviously we haven't had much wind the days we have flown, so I wouldn't be too concerned with rotor or turbulence or anything from any of the mountains that we have been flying on or around lately until the wind pick up, sort of above 10 knots type thing, that you really start to want to think about where you're flying into. And apart from that, I mean, I've been flying around, I'm looking at the dams and everything like that, and I keep seeing them all flow in different directions, so seems to be a lot of probably local valley influences around. Once you get the bigger mountains and light winds, you'll find that the winds are very switchy, and it's why it's probably hard to pick which way to land some days. I mean, you can see it just sitting in goal yesterday with windshocks in 4 different places around the big field, and at any given time you can look at all 4 of them and they're all blowing different directions. So you can see why it makes it hard to pick a direction when you're landing sometimes in the last, in the light winds here in valleys and things like that, because the wind's really just coming in all different directions. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, probably would have favoured it was late in the day, so I probably would have favoured the sunny side of the ridge, the western side, especially if you had what you thought was some sort of south wind. I think it was actually northeast though.
Okay.
The predominant wind, at least at altitude. You might have had different breezes on the ground, but I think it was maybe light south on the ground, but once you got up, all the thermals looked like they were drifting out of the northeast on most people's track logs. So yeah, in saying that, you're probably lee side going down the western side, but I think you would have been better off just with the sun baking on the mountain. So, yeah. So yeah, we're just talking about decision making. That was one topic.
So my decision to be launch marshal would have been a shit idea.
Yeah. In saying that, I think you've done a fantastic job this week, Randall, so thank you.
I do think my decision making was quite poor.
No, I don't think so. I think you kept everyone very safe, and we only had one incident, and that was nothing to do with you. That was perfect conditions, just a bit of a trip on the run, and these things happen, they say, accidents happen, so yeah.
So do we know what happened exactly? Like, was it a trip that caused him to lose balance and drop a wing? Or
Well, when I was watching, he sort of shuffled off, but maybe he did trip, but he certainly wasn't going fast enough to be
He did
letting his feet leave the
He
ground.
was also pushing out with his right hand to try and straighten it up instead of pulling in with the left hand. So he's just washing off speed as he's going down instead of trying to get a bit more.
Initially he took a few steps and stumbled and sort of fell, so he kind of just naturally pushed out to try and see if he could get away with it, and he did get off the ground, but he dropped the tip at the same time, and he said, "Oh, I was trying to weight shift." I said, "Yeah, but when you've got your arms out in the turn, you can weight shift all you want, nothing's going to happen." So, you know, he possibly could have gotten away with it if he had pulled back in and actually weight shifted. You know, he had a chance of flying away. He may have just got further down and hit higher trees and been worse off, so you never really know. But at the end of the day, he walked away from it. So, but yeah, you know, I have seen a few people launching lately, and especially in the nil wind days, a lot of people think it's a race to get off the hill. Like, it's no wind, so I've got to run as fast as I can. That's generally not the right thing, because the most important thing is keeping the correct angle of attack all the way through your run. Some of you have probably seen me take off, and I just start with a little walk and slowly build up the speed as you get down the hill, because the glider is going to take off at the speed it's going to take off, and it doesn't matter whether it takes you 10 feet or 50 feet to get to that of running. But if you pop the nose straight away, the glider's going to stall, and then you're 2 steps backwards from where you even started from. So just keeping the correct angle and just making sure that you gradually build up that speed is the most important thing, even in no wind or even a slight tailwind. Not that you want to launch tailwind, but yeah, just a nice smooth run to try and keep your technique very consistent all the way through, and then you'll find that you'll get off the ground a lot easier. Yes, Peter.
My main question was about how best to get up from the conditions we've experienced this year below the top. It's been fairly small, broken, weak lift, and everyone says, "Oh, it's great once you get above $5,000." I never had the chance to get above $5,000. I got drilled when I got to $3,000. You know, it was all they've been very small, very weak, and they're not. Haven't had big solid thermals like in previous years.
Oh, I think I saw you up there above $5,000 the other day.
Well, that was cheating in a 188 glider.
It's very true. A lot of times, especially in the big mountains, you know, you talk to the pilots that fly the Alps in Europe all the time, and you know, the biggest rule of thumb is to always make sure you're high enough when you're crossing a valley to get to the top of the peaks on the other side, because generally that's where you're going to get the good climbs. Below that, a lot of times the lift is broken or bubbles, and it doesn't really form until it gets to the top of the mountain, and then triggers off from a lot of times both sides, which is what we see a lot here, with especially in the lighter conditions. If you can come in just above the peaks and you've got at least 2 sides of the mountain triggering it, you'll find that the climb will be much more solid and more, I guess, defined or formed, whereas you know, you take off and you go the right of launch and you're in that bowl, you're already behind one ridge. So the air that's, you know, coming up is already going over one ridge, and then you've got this mixing effect, and then you're getting these little bubbles that are sort of you're trying to get up in, and they're all broken. And I mean, it was like that yesterday for us. We were all just there groveling around, and you know, we kind of went out to the front spur because figure that's where the main trigger is going to be. You're above 2 sides of it, and from there, you know, we started to get some good climbs there, and then once we drifted back between that spur and the launch ridge, you know, the thermal kind of died a little bit, like it weakened, and then once it got back to the main launch again, it kicked again. So a lot of times it's just being patient, I like to have a very relaxed grip on the base bar, just let the glider, feel the glider and feel what the air's doing to the glider. Sometimes if you're just holding on too tight, you don't really have the feedback that the air's giving you. And that happens a lot, mostly with pilots when they get low. They go from flying at the right speed to flying about 10-15 k's an hour too fast, and they also get nervous, they grip on, and they just lose a lot of feeling for the air, which is, if you want to do low saves and stay up, it's very important to pretend that you're at 10,000 feet still and you've got all the time in the world, even though you might be just double the tree height. But yeah, it's very important to have a light feel to try and feel what the air's doing, and you know, we have had a lot of broken stuff around takeoff, and it certainly has probably been pretty tricky for a lot of people to get up just around launch. Obviously, it's not easy to pick a launch cycle when you're in a competition and things like that, but a lot of times when you go free flying, you know, I'll stand on the hill and people go, oh, why are you standing on the hill? You know, the wind's blowing up. I go, yeah, but I haven't seen the thermal that I want to go up in yet. So there's no point in running off the hill and circling my way down for 5 minutes to try and circle my way back up. So I'd rather stay at the altitude where I know I can stay up at, which is on launch, until I see something that I believe is going to get me up or get me away. But yeah, yes, Phil.
How do you, what process do you use to arrive at your decision to leave the start gate? I know yesterday Hubert had a bit to do with it, but he suckered you in. So what process do you use to say, right, now I'll leave the start gate? I know it's got a lot to do with height, you know, you get as high as you can in the start gate, but do you look at other pilots as well, in particular in comps?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this comp is a little bit more unique where we have a lapse time race.
Yep.
Whereas the other comps we generally have a start time, so you don't really have a choice.
Yep.
You know, you're starting whether you're high or whether you're low, or you know, sometimes we have race start. It's only one start, and if you're not there or you're not in position, you're late. You know, so. But obviously here, when you can start at your own free will, you know, common sense says, well, I want to be as high as I can at the edge of the start cylinder and have a good looking sky in front of me. Being that you could fly around here all day long and wait for the conditions, you know, you might be up there in the start and you go, oh, I'm good to go, but if you really want to race and do it as fast as you can, you might go, well, now's not the right time to start. I might just wait a little longer and see if the sky is looking better. For me, yesterday, let's talk about yesterday, for example, since it's fresh in everyone's mind. I knew that I wanted to be high. I'd been watching people gliding out from launch over to Mitta, and they're all getting there quite low even before I'd even taken off. Most of them seem to climb out the lee side. But we had more northeast winds early yesterday that became northwest or north-northwest. So by the time we took off, I found that we were getting about 15 k an hour out of north-northwest, so it turned into a bit more of a headwind mission for us to punch out to Mitta. Yeah, I was pretty keen to get to cloud base before I left launch, which is, we kind of hung around there for a while until that happened.
What was cloud base yesterday for you?
About 6,400, I think, at launch anyway. I mean, it wasn't quite there, but it was pretty close. I heard other people calling that height earlier, so I thought, well, that's close enough. One thing, there was me, there was Hubert, I think Bruce was there, and Pete Burkett.
James Wynn, I think.
James was there, yeah. And Pete left first. He didn't quite max out. He just took off, trying to win another day. And he just flew straight towards the first turn point, over towards Mitta, and he was just falling out of the sky. And I thought, well, that doesn't look like much fun. And I think it was someone in a gecko that was climbing up over the spur where the power lines are out the front, and I thought, oh, well, that looks like a good climb, I'll go out there. And I flew out to him, and Pete just flew straight past him, you know, maybe half a k away, just climbing out of the sky, and this guy was coming up in what looked like 500-600 feet per minute. So I thought, well, it's closer to the edge of the start cylinder and it's going up pretty good, I think I'll take that. So I went there and I climbed out, and Hubert meanwhile was behind me, and he was climbing out trying to get up high, and I'm not sure if he saw us either, but he kind of went sailing past us as well, and I thought, oh, well, there we go, this is good. Yeah. Rubbing my hands together, nice light grip on the bar. And So I stayed there and I just topped out because I thought, well, it's very possible that the start gate was going to be before we got to Mitta, obviously. And I wasn't sure if we were going to get to Mitta, climb out and then go back and do another start, or if we were just going to go through the start and keep going. So I thought, oh, I'll stick in this climb for a while, give myself a couple of minutes behind Hubert here, and so I got a couple of minutes up my sleeve, and then yeah, they all kind of got low on Mitta, and I hit a climb with Bruce, sort of just lee side, and it was not that strong, maybe 150 up, and we were just drifting back towards the start gate, and I thought, oh, you know, I could stick in this and restart, or I could just go. The clouds, the course looked pretty good. You know, one advantage of flying such short courses and in the same area around here is that you have you can see the whole course line before you even start. So I could see that it looked pretty good, the timing I was on, and decided that I would go ahead. Hubert was still out in front, and I thought, well, that's all right. He looks like he's committing to going as well. And yeah, so I left, I flew over the top of him, didn't get much, and went, I'll keep going. There was a good cloud forming over the hot rocks. I got up a little bit there, and then I spotted the guys climbing low on the next ridge before the turn point, and pretty much just sailed straight over there and hit 600 to 700 up, and put me about 2 k's from that first turn point. Fortunately, they were all going the other way, so I had to still go to the turn point. I did that, and then just a long glide back, sort of near where the golf field was, I guess, the north end of Mitta there, and climbed out. It was kind of the last cloud I could see up until Lighthouse, so it was pretty blue. There was some clouds behind Lighthouse on the next mountains, which obviously didn't want to go past Lighthouse. You know, I don't want to add the extra distance. Oh, look at that. There we go. I was wondering what everyone was staring at. Oh, so that's a goal there, yep. So climbed out there, and then while I was in that climb, a little cloud started forming out to the left there, which is the circles you see there. I thought if I could top out there, I had a good chance of just going straight to the turn point and back to goal. But unfortunately I hit a bit more sink than I was hoping. If I was actually in the light speed, I probably would have just done the turn point and straight back to goal, because I said that I was going to make it by about 500 feet still, but I like to leave myself a little bit more margin flying the gecko than what polars in my instrument. So I had some other gliders climbing just behind Lighthouse there to the south, so I went under them, and it was pretty light lift. I also knew at that point in time, because I'd just gone over the gold field, that nobody was at goal, and the guys that I caught up with were you know, not far in front of me, and I knew they'd started a fair ways in front, so I kind of just went, well, I'm probably going to be faster than all the people that are in front of me, and the only one I don't know about is this man here. But I did know that he turned around and restarted, so I was like, I don't want to waste too much time. But at the same time, you still want to get to goal, so I didn't really want to just race back and find myself back towards goal, scratching low. So I just tried to stay a little bit high, and I took that really weak climb. And my numbers were getting better. And then Steve Doherty left and went on final glide in his light speed, and I started following him, and he hit a little bit of lift just over that little mountain there where my last climb was. And he basically just kind of went through it. I think he was on the edge of it, and I just went to the right, and a little cloud started forming. So I just went a little bit more right there, and I hit this climb, and it was only 200 to 300 up, but after about 5 or 6 turns, it went forward up 500 and then 600 to 700, and I basically, you can see I almost went straight up in that climb because it was so strong. And I think I left on 4 to 1 to goal, 3,000 feet above the goal that said I was going to get there. So
And what height did you get to Gold?
Oh, well, I was flying. The poor gecko got a little bit dragged out on that glide yesterday. I think he was doing 90 k's an hour all the way to goal. So you can see that's why it's such a straight line in there. There's plenty of altitude to burn. So I mean, I could have left obviously sooner and saved a bit of time and flown a bit slower to goal. But you know, at the end of the day, you never want to miss a goal when it's so close to par. Plus, I knew I'd already had a good time, so you know I wasn't. Yeah, so you know it was obviously a good day yesterday for me, but I think the decisions there were that on a short course, you know, we could, if you zoom out a little bit there, you can see I did make some deviations, but when I first started, I was pretty much pointing straight for the turn point. So just trying to fly down course line. I hit the first climb, I could tell that I was drifting out of the north-northwest, or, well, it's actually pretty north, isn't it? North-northeast.
Right here, that's where Hubert went back again. That's Hugh. So you were both together on the foothills of Mitta.
Sneaky Hugh.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, it's good to fly straight lines. You'll find that you go a lot faster if you're doing less kilometres. And saying that, I think, have you got Neil Hassel straight up there? You'll see he's done a lot more of a detour, but he obviously had good clouds. So he's gone a bit more into Mitta, and then he's done quite a wide detour through the valley. So, and then he's done, I'm not sure, Neil, maybe you can explain what you did at that first turn point. You went a fair way through the cylinder. Was there a cloud up there, or?
I deviated probably 15 degrees left over near that, because there was good cloud there. I got up, I got to cloud base, and rather than fly into the blue, I thought I'll just deviate and try and just fly under the cloud and just skim along it, and that worked. But I lost a lot of height going into Pine Mountain. And I spent a fair bit of time on that ridge at the south end of that valley, of the no landing valley there.
Yeah.
And I got back up to 6,000, and it was fairly dark cloud over the mountain, so I didn't want to fly under the cloud too close to it, because I thought I'd get a lot of lift and maybe get taken up into it. And it didn't pan out that way. I didn't get anything under it. And then I could see it was sunny on the north side of Pine Mountain. I thought I might have got the trigger there, and I went out a fair way, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then I cut my losses and went back, and I got fairly low on that the east side of that ridge, and spent a fair bit of time getting up. But I eventually got cloud base, and then another cloud was direct in line with me above Intel.
Mm-hmm.
I topped up there, and I had about a 12 to 1 to go, and I thought, you know, it's getting close, so I probably only need another one, and I got some lift over at the turn point at Lighthouse. Then that one petered out a bit, and there was more clouds forming on the way back, so I topped up and got about a 6 to 1 glide to goal.
There's plenty of altitude then too.
Yeah. I had enough to do a few turns, but I wanted to be conservative because I missed the previous day because I thought I had a good number, but I couldn't get the top of Mitta.
Mm. So yeah, so I mean, you know, on a short course, 55 kilometres, and a lot of the legs being, I think the first one was 23, something like that kilometres. To deviate 5 Ks, it needs to be kind of worth it. Otherwise, you're just wasting a lot of time and flying a lot of extra distance to. I mean, if you need to stay up, it might be worth it, but if there's no reason that you can see to go so far off a course line, you're better off just to point straight down a course line and keep moving and try and get the best times you can get. I've sort of been looking at a lot of people's track logs. I notice a lot of people go quite far into the turn points, and that can cost you. You know, if you're doing 3 or 4 turn points in a day, you go an extra few hundred meters. You can see I don't go very far into the turn point. You just got to make sure you get the cylinder and back out of there. Whereas you look at, you know, pull up another track log, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah. Let's go down just a bit. Let's have a look at. That's a good one.
Yeah, so
Went
he's gone all the way past the turn point. So he obviously either didn't have his instrument set right on launch. So he didn't have the 2K radius setting, obviously. He's gone to, well, like I said, he's gone past the actual point.
All the way to the point.
I'm not sure what he was trying to draw there, but looks like a bit of a dog bone or something. So you know that's 4 kilometres he's flown further. That could have made him make goal. Just, you know, he wasn't that far short, and he's flown an extra 4Ks than everyone else did. Just from either not programming his instruments right, or not looking at them when he got there and just thought he's got to keep going. I'm not sure.
It's a long way past the lift too. Like
Yeah.
Kilometres with no lift.
So he's thermaled up, he's topped out, and then he's gone all the way in, wasted all that height to come back out. Let's find another one. He's doing good there. That was a great example.
That was just luck.
That was just luck.
There we go. Ricky Martin.
Ricky Martin. It's the same thing. He's not quite sure what he's done there, but he's...
I think he was flying hills and then he followed lift into the centre. Looks like.
I wonder if they didn't realise it was a 2K radius, right?
Well,
That one looks like thermaling though.
yeah.
Drifting.
But you can see how much extra distance he's flown when you just zoom out there and you look at the course line. Like, the blue line's obviously the line you want to follow.
This.
The blue one's
the red line is centre to centre. The blue line is optimised, so that's your quickest route around the course.
So you can see how much extra distance he's done just on that one turn point. So even though it looks like he's had a slow time in the goal at an hour 58, he probably wasted 15 minutes just on that one turn point. And I'm not sure what he's done down at Lighthouse, but he's done Lighthouse pretty good. So he's made up for it at Lighthouse, but he wasted a lot of time at that first turn point.
A lot of instruments, they default to 400 metre radius turn points, don't they? If you don't put in turn point radius, it sticks on 400 metres.
Generally, yeah, I think. It depends on what instruments you're using, but yeah.
I think.
Some instruments take the actual, whatever it's in the file. Sometimes there is a turn point in the file itself. And
It
sometimes
depends if
they
you've
take
done
out-
it. Yeah, it depends if you've done it manually or not. But
Oh.
with the compare, it's got 400 metres default.
Does anyone else want to look at their track log? We can.
critique.
We
Can
can
we
actually mine if
critique?
you like.
All right,
I
let's
got,
check
I
it out
got
now.
really
Yeah.
low at the first turn point.
All
you know,
right,
and
let's
I
have a look at
wonder,
that.
because there are other people who are right near me.
Yeah.
I lost it when they didn't. And so I'm wondering where I'm making my decisions differently that got me so low. I scratched up and made it, but it was
Thanks
tough.
for finding that one too.
Yeah, and some people benefited from it. But it was tough work when I feel like other people made it easier by making a better decision. I'm not sure where I went wrong. So if people could critique that, that'd be...
So I'm just trying to get the track log right here. So you came into the valley on the south end of the mountains,
Yep.
and then you've run along the top of the
There was a
mountain.
group of 4 of us exploring, trying to find lift, and finally got up to base.
Yep.
Then we got across towards Pine Mountain, but I lost it, and some of the guys I was flying with didn't. So at that point, if we can zoom in maybe on that bit just before the turn point, I don't know if anybody can see anything that I can't, but I lost it somehow there.
Around about here.
Yeah, and then I was scratching from like just above treetop height, below the ridge on the ridge in front of Pine Mountain. So I was bombing out.
Yeah.
And how did I get into that situation? Any clues in the track log? How could I have decided better?
At least you're doing the square thermals.
Yeah, spare thermals are good. And obviously it's hard to tell because you can't see what the sky is doing with the track logs.
Yeah.
I was above you at the time.
Yeah, what, did you make it out of there without bombing down with me?
No, we had 700 up to cloud.
Okay, so I've just lost the thermal.
You were with us
Yeah.
for the first half.
Yeah.
And it was me and I think it was Troy Horton.
Yeah, okay,
We were
good.
above. But
This is you, Mitch. You look much the same as Neil's, though.
yeah, but took that to cloud, got the turn point, then came back just slightly south and back into it again.
So I did that as well, but I had to work really hard to get it because I got so low. What was your minimum height there? Like, guesstimate.
Wouldn't have a clue.
So what was 2,000? Okay, yeah. So I was down. In the
You were
hundreds.
lower than me. But
Yeah, I was in the hundreds, not the thousands. So somehow I made a decision somewhere, and I'm wondering if that's like a learning, not just for me, but I made a decision somewhere or lost the thermal somehow when these guys didn't, and that made a huge difference because I spent so many minutes, it's probably close to half an hour, that I was trying to get out of that area.
Did you have cloud base before you left? On that flight?
Yeah, I got to cloud base before I sunk out there.
So you had to
So I had height, and something went wrong. And yes, okay, I'm reasonably proud of my scratching ability, but I shouldn't need it. So somewhere, somehow, I'm making a decision or losing the thermal. It might be just my thermaling technique. I don't know if you guys observed anything that I was doing
you looked in the same position as us,
Yeah, so what did I do?
unless you just fell out the bottom of it.
Somehow, but why? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can't solve it today, but that's
We're
just
there,
what
we're there above you.
yeah.
Sometimes it's a bubble that you might just be underneath it, you know.
And
Just
you
miss the butts.
You might have broken off, you know.
Yeah,
The first
yeah.
third is really hard to work, and once you get up,
It gets easier. Yeah, it certainly did. Once I got up there, it was great. And coming back from there, I was flying along beside the cloud. You know.
Well, you came in with me, but you're on the way back from the turn point at that point.
Yeah.
When I saw you, you were nice and high.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
did well after that, but that one decision cost me, I don't know, maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. If you can save that time, so I'm interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I guess
that's
it's just skill.
yeah. I mean, it all comes down to decision making, you know, and trying to make. It's not always about making the right decision. Sometimes it's about making decisions that make less mistakes. Because no one's perfect when it comes to flying. Wish we could be, but sometimes winning is about just making the least amount of mistakes out of everyone for the day, you know.
Andy, can we have a look at Tusha and mine?
Okay, hang on. I'll just get rid of all these ones. Getting too many tabs open.
Because I was the same, I was down low and bombed out, and you were right above me, like at the same height, and took off.
So was that in front of me too?
Just want to see sort of which way it was drifting, which I missed. I totally missed which way it was drifting.
Yeah, no, I think I
There's
got out of
Tusha.
that because I was scratching all over that.
Yeah, you were. You were deep in that bowl, working your way out of that, and then with me helping under you. Might have.
So that's Tush. And that's you, Jace.
So it appears that you didn't have enough height to clear middle,
Nah.
obviously. So
I started with 6,000.
6,000 kind of behind Elliot.
Yep.
There's one climb.
As one climb.
Yep.
How high did you hit the small hill?
2,200.
Is there any reason you pushed further off the course line rather than taking the over to cloud?
I was going for cloud, but realised I was going to sting.
Yeah, so obviously being in the sting, you gotta, you know, there was a fair mission getting across that valley and to get on the mitter at, you know, with good altitude. You know, you gotta, it probably comes from, you know, you did do quite a big detour crossing that valley. you know, you try to go across, but then you've turned and you've gone up, so you kind of lengthen that whole first glide.
There was another cloud that popped off just off to my right, so I went closer, and by the time I got there, it had actually died anyway.
Yeah. So sometimes you're better off either flying straight down the course line, because that way you can always have the option of going tailwind. I certainly would have been probably heading for that same point that you went to, but just a little bit more on the course line side, and see what see what happens on the glide. See if you see a cloud popping or whatever it might be, and then adjust your course line to that. But yeah, as I said, it was a hard glide over there and a intermediate glide yesterday.
What would be a good strategy for someone in a sting or a fun who aren't possibly going to make that glide in one go? Would you wait in the start circle, for example, until you see someone thermally in the valley?
Well, I think there would have been people out there.
Yeah, I had two on Mitta,
Yeah.
which was two sure off the spot, and I had another topless.
Yeah, they're
across in
a
front
little
of me.
bit far.
Off to the
No, I
right.
think they were right there above him. If you look at Tush's track log, so he's on that ridge there.
He's
I knew I couldn't make it to the top of Mitta, so I was just scratching all the way, just taking anything.
It seems like 6,000 is a bit low. Like you probably could have seen other gliders a lot higher than on that area.
Yeah, I didn't have anyone up with me at that time.
Right.
Well,
Like, I
that was
got
second
right
second attempt.
Like you used to say scratch high, like, so maybe just try and wait for others and top out as much as you can, because you're going to get there with 500 more feet. That's the big difference, and it gives you more time to find something.
I had 6,000, and I thought if I hang around any longer, if I don't find lift, I'll end up, back down to 3 or 4 or something. So I kind of rushed myself off the hill.
Patience.
I was a bit that way too. I had 3 attempts to get any altitude at all in really scrappy thermals. So once I got high, I thought I'd better make a dash. Maybe it's not the right idea.
Well, someone told me that the day before yesterday that the harvesting paddock was actually working quite well. I actually headed directly over that, and it turned out I actually hooked one 200 yards from the start circle. So got back right up nice and high, and it actually worked really well. And the clouds didn't work for me at all yesterday.
is that this paddock here, Randall?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Even when I topped out, there's a cloud half a k away from me, and it was all petered out, and I'm thinking I can nearly see the bottom of it, and I'm thinking, I'm sure I'm supposed to be over there, but anyway.
Yeah. I had a whole cloud street in front of me, and by the time I got anywhere, halfway across the valley, it all disappeared.
How far did you get before the beer started calling Randall?
I got right to that ridge, and it was all in, for Death Valley, and I was probably 1,000 feet above that ridge on the right, before Pine Mountain, and then I flew myself down in between the peaks, and the beer started calling. I'm thinking landing in Death Valley or land where the beer is. Hard decision. Decision making, that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit of a shame because you had quite a nice looking track log.
Yeah,
there.
I know.
You were going well.
Actually really good.
Is it shaped like a sea?
Yeah. It's a shame the beer was so cold down there. Otherwise,
No, well that whole ridge and then all of Pine Mountain was in shade when I got there. So it was like, all I did was just fly back in not much better than zeros. Maybe went up a little bit, but not a great deal.
might have to have a
Trying to
new
find
rule at
something.
Corrie on that you only get 1 beer per turn point.
Yes.
If you make goal without a turn point, you don't get a beer.
I was going to say I just landed at the pub and gee, all you
That's how Lord's Marshal dying at first hit.
That's right.
But John,
Yeah.
with novice pilots and things flying in the low performance gliders, What's your best technique for if they go somewhere and they've got to go do an upwind task? What's your best option for trying to manage that?
Sack the task committee?
Sorry?
Sack the task committee?
Well, if you go, say, flatlands and they decide to do a triangle or something like that, what's your best options for doing headwind in a low performance glider or even a high performance glider? There's a lot of people know when I first started, I thought of going headwind, you just go, no, I can't do it. Whereas I know now that you can.
Yeah.
You've just got to change your expectations a little bit.
And your wing loading.
Are those pens writable on the board?
Yep.
One colour will work. Any colour. Oops. Let's say the wind is blowing this direction.
It's not going to rain today.
And we have a little out and return course. So we're going downwind to start with and coming back into a headwind. There's a thermal.
That was a headwind.
That was a bit of a headwind there.
I dare someone to call it.
Over the back.
Broken thumb down there.
Obviously, if we got clouds, it's makes life a lot easier. So let's draw a couple of clouds in the pictures.
What are the chances of them being all lined up like that?
Yeah.
Pretty good chance when you got a bit of wind. So once you had a bit of wind, generally we get you know, what they call cloud streets or cloud streeting or lines of sink or lines of lift. And one thing that thermals do, once they do line up, is they block the wind. They actually weigh a lot, thermals, even though they don't seem like it. So the wind doesn't penetrate through that line of clouds as fast as it's going to penetrate through the blue holes. So obviously the fastest way to go headwind or to achieve a headwind task is A, find lift. So we want to try and pick the line that is going to have the lift and is going to be having less headwind. Obviously, if it's blue skies, it makes it a lot harder. This is where a lot of people say, oh, I'm just on glide and I'm in 600 down, what do I do? A lot of people say, oh, you just turn and go left or right and try to get out of that line of sink until you find good air and then start going headwind again. So I would be thinking about, at this point here, when I'm on course going this way, about my next leg. And one of my rules of thumb is to be at max altitude when you get the turn point, especially if you're going back into a headwind. Otherwise, you glide around the turn point, you come back here low, you hit a thermal, and then you drift. Next thing you know, you're back at the turn point again. Whereas if you did the turn point and you were nice and high, you might be able to glide all the way to this little cloud, you hit a very strong climb, and you go drip, and you're at cloud base, instead of being down there low and you're all the way back at turn point. So you can make up a lot of time by taking a turn point high. One good reason for that is it's a course direction change. So all the way down this leg you've been looking at clouds and you've been looking at things, looking in one direction. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, I'm at that point where I've got to turn and now which way am I going now? You do a U-turn and you go, oh, I've got to go back there again. You haven't really been studying that sky, or a lot of people don't look ahead and then they go, oh, what do I do now? So before a turn point, especially if you're going back headwind, look ahead. Look at, okay, I'm going to glide at the turn point. This might be the last cloud here. I'm going to top out. It's going to get me as high as I possibly can be at the turn point. It might not be cloud based, but it's better than diving in there low. I'm going to be at the max altitude that I think I can get to. And then where am I going to go next? And have a look where you think your glide angle might get you from the altitude you're at, and start monitoring that area for your next climb. And it might simply be just looking around and saying, okay, well, let's say that cloud's not there anymore when you're here. And you're on glide, and all of a sudden you start seeing this little wispy starting to form there, and you get to the turn point, you turn around, all of a sudden this wispy is a little bit bigger. You're thinking, well, that's a growing cloud, because I've been monitoring that area. I think I might go there. And by the time you get there, the cloud's even bigger. You get your good little climb. Once you're on that climb, let's say you finally call, second, third circle. Now start looking further up the course line and monitoring what you see up there. You know, let's say there might be a cloud there, there's a blue sky there. You're now 3-4 minutes into that climb. All of a sudden you start seeing a little something popping on that side of you. Stick with your climb, obviously. Keep an eye on that. You might see that this cloud is starting to get smaller because it's been there for a while now. So you're not going to go to that one anymore because it's starting to decay, it's starting to die. And a few more circles later, you see that cloud getting bigger. So yeah, I guess flying upwind, you just really need to be more observant and really, you know, every mistake shows up when you're going upwind. You make a little mistake and you pay for it, because you're just going to end up drifting back to where you were half an hour earlier. Can you bring up 2 days ago my track log?
Yep. If we need ivory, we've got ivory for yesterday.
You don't need it just yet. I can point out all my mistakes without ivory for now. Sorry, not that one, the one...
Can I say something, Johnny? Just while you're looking?
2 days ago, task 3.
Can I say something just while he's looking?
Yeah.
You know, Johnny's talking about as soon as you find the core, every time it comes around, start looking up course line to observe what's happening. Oftentimes in the flatlands, everything looks identical. It's just farm paddocks as far as you can see in every direction. And sometimes while you're circling, you can kind of lose orientation to, you know, I'm circling and I know I want to be observing every circle of what's happening further on course line, but you might start getting confused about which direction to even look, if you know what I mean, because it all looks the same. So often when I'm on glide, and if I think, oh, it's starting to be a little bubbly, there might be something around here, I'll try to take a snapshot ahead on course line of the ground. You know, maybe there's a farm paddock, and you know, where the building is or the house, or just try to take some kind of snapshot, because I think I'm going to be circling here pretty quick. At least I got an idea of what picture I'm looking at, so I can have orientation for which direction I need to look down course line for stop development. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so Vic brings up a good point. Let's just go back to a hard day where there's no clouds. So now we're looking at ground sources. So let's pretend we're on the flatlands. What might be some good ground sources to look at for your next potential climb? Houses? Harvesters. Beautiful.
Can I say it depends on what the wind strength is, whether it's zero wind or a little bit more wind? Like it might be blowing against the trigger or not?
Okay, yeah. Okay, let's call it 5 knots. 5 knots of headwind, or 5 knots of wind out of the north, let's say. So harvesters.
Dusties, so they're not too fat.
Yeah, so we got harvesters, dusties.
I always like to see eagles.
Tree lines.
Tree lines.
Yes.
Two
Yeah.
roofs. Well, and colour of paddocks.
Colour of paddocks. So a lot of times you see a lot of different colours of paddocks. Which one's going to heat up faster? Dark fields, alright. So dark fields is a good one. Yep.
Farmhouses.
Farmhouses. Yeah, what do you find at farmhouses?
So, found quite a few times, yeah. So that works as a trigger, especially on low and slow day.
Lots of compacted ground where they're driving vehicles. And tin roofs.
Well, it's usually
Anything
some
else?
trees, the differentiation, so there's usually some trees around the
Farmers
farmhouse.
moving around.
Trigger.
Trigger point. So it's not necessarily the farmhouse, but what you're going to find in the farmhouse is around the farmhouse, normally, especially out in the flatlands, you've got a lot of dry fields, a lot of crops, a lot of things like that. But right around the house, they want to have their nice green grass. So you've got a little trigger point there where there's a temperature difference. So that hot air is coming, hits the tree line, hits the houses, hits something, hits the cool grass, triggers it off.
Is the moisture though from around the house? Is that a
I don't know about that, but you just find that it's just the temperature difference. So it just really lets it. So
I think the two things which I reckon are really good are cemeteries and rubbish tips and
Pig farms. Pig
They
farms, yeah.
stink, but they're some awesome
Easy to
thermals off pig farms.
yeah. No, that's good. I mean, one of my favourite things about flying down here in Victoria, especially at Brighton, places like that,
The Victorians.
apart from the Victorians, is being able to smell the thermals. A lot of times you dive in, I know flying Bogon Cup many a times, you just dive into a pine forest and you can just about smell the thermal before you hit it. And you get that really nice smelling pine thermals, and
You can smell the paraglider pilot too, bright.
it's it's nice to know. You just know that you're in a thermal because that smell is not just in the air; it's coming up from the ground. So same as pig farms. It doesn't smell quite like a pine forest, but you know that there's lift there.
The ethanol planted
Fires.
I do know one time when we during the comp at Birchip, we had a task to Richmond Avon, which is anyway south, but I had about 500 feet of height and I needed probably another, I don't know, 1,000 feet or more to be able to get to goal, and there were these big white arch looking, I thought it was a chook sheds. I flew in over the top of them and it just went beep, 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 and I went, you bloody oh shit. Oh. And I sort of tried not to breathe, but I did about 4 turns in this stench and then just headed off to goal and just made it in. But oh my God, worst thermal I've had. But yes, it really stunk.
Yeah, the ethanol plant at Delby works the same too.
Yeah.
You can smell that one quite easy.
Adding to the list, I'd say areas of wet versus dry ground and high versus low ground.
So that was one that no one had mentioned yet. One of my favourite ones. Dams. Amazing how many times you get up low off a dam. Yep. If it was a big field and there's a dam in it, I know where I'm going.
You can see, you can see the swirl sometimes on a dam.
Oh well, you can do that too. You see them here flying over them. You'll see the dusties going or the swells going through the dams.
So when you're talking dam, you're talking about a puddle of water.
Yeah.
Even the small little dams that are like not much bigger than this gazebo.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a little trigger. Yeah. A lot of times the dams have a little embankment, so there's a little bit of rising ground. You know, the thermal's just baking there on the ground, the wind's blowing out, and all of a sudden it hits this little dam embankment. It gets this cooling effect from the water, and all of a sudden, boom. Actually, shallow dams can actually hold a lot of heat too. So
I see you've got fires there.
Yeah.
Your big fires, or you like ones that are
preferably ones that aren't going to catch your glider on fire.
Have you actually gotten up off fire?
Yeah.
Because I always find that it's real ratty, broken shit that I can't actually pour, and I just want to leave it. Am I wrong, or?
No.
I don't think I've ever gotten up off a fire.
Okay.
I'd like to.
The good thing about a fire is it's not a lot of good things. You can see the smoke. So you might see that it's hard because of the direction I've got this drawn, but a lot of times the smoke's going to lay over with the wind. If there's a bit of wind, the smoke's laying over. And then all of a sudden you'll see it start standing up and going straight up, or a lot more vertical than being blown along the ground. Obviously that's a good sign that there's air going up. It's not, fire is definitely just like any other ground source, so thermals come and go through them. But you can see, you might see there's this puff of smoke just coming up, and it's, you can see most of the smoke is down here, but now there's this puff that's just going straight up, and yeah, that can be a great thermal source.
Are you using the smoke as a marker for the thermal more?
Yeah.
Or as opposed to the actual heat coming off the fire?
Correct.
So it could be some other source, right? That the thermal is just marking it, right?
Yeah.
Well, in case of smoke.
The fire might just be the trigger point,
Yeah.
How do you handle one fire I actually thermaled up out of was incredibly punchy.
Mm.
And I find that sometimes if the lift is really, really strong, I actually fly up, I climb slower because I can't handle it as well as I can in a more gentle way.
Oh, Vic was right.
So, Johnny, have you got any tips for like really spiky lift, really punchy lift? How to optimise that? What do you?
I think the best way to work punchy lift is to have a steeper bank angle and try to really tighten up in the little bubbles until you get a bit higher maybe. Down
Be
low,
really
just
noisy.
over 5, it's going to get a little bit slow. It's a big drop.
It's fine language.
So we were looking at triggers, potential triggers, yeah? So now we have a blue day, and we have a list of things that we're looking for along our course line. One thing I do is I like to go, okay, I'm at this altitude, I want to cover the most amount of ground over the most amount of triggers that I can, which is going to give me the best chance of getting the next thermal. I don't necessarily always want to bank just on the one choice, even though there might be one that I have in mind that I'm thinking, oh, that's the one. I might get to that one and it's not the one. And if that one is too far away, I might find that now I'm low. I put all my money in the one basket, and now I'm going to have to go for my next best option, which is not my first option, but it's another option. You guys hear me? So yeah, I guess when you're flying in the blue, it's important to have a good look at the ground because that's all you got, more or less. Sometimes, if it's an inverted blue day, you'll find when you get to the top of a climb, you can actually see haze done. So if you get right to the top of an inversion and look out, you might see parts of the inversion that are actually rising over other parts. So that's a good one to do when you're reaching the top of the climb on a blue day. Depending on what sort of glasses you wear, I like to wear the sort of red tint. I find it gives me the best sort of vision for that sort of stuff. But have a look at the haze zones on the top of the inversion, and that's generally the thermals just punching through a little bit of that inversion and bringing that smoky layer up just a little bit more. So you might be able to see that. It's not clouds you're looking for, but it's just little bubbles just getting through the inversion. And you know, I would certainly keep flying down that line over what might be even on the ground that I see. Just to start with, especially when you're high, and then worry about ground sources a bit later on once you get lower if you don't get the climbs you're looking for under the haze zone. Picking lines is a very, I guess, something that just comes from experience. And a lot of times that comes from having a very light feel on your rider. Probably there's a few pilots I can think of that are extremely good at picking lines. First one that comes to mind is probably Ron Hawker. He has a very good understanding of the air, and has always been able to pick good lines on glides. And that just comes from a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge of the weather, and not just knowledge but actually understanding what's happening. And that's a big thing. Like people say, oh, it's raining now. Oh, yeah, it's raining, but why is it raining? And knowing that, okay, there's a trough line over us, or there's a lot of instability, and being able to explain or understand why it's doing what it's doing, gives you just that little bit more knowledge of trying to put yourself in the best air and putting the best lines on a glide.
Jonny, if you're flying fast, you can't do the light feel obviously, but what's your, like I really lose that feel when I'm flying fast. How do you feel the little bit of lift when you're doing 70, 80 k's an hour? What are you feeling while you've got the bar in and the VG on?
Well, you can still feel everything through the base bar. Yeah. You're not holding on too tight.
So you get this like, oh, I should have taken that one. Oh, I should have taken that one.
Maybe. Sometimes when you get lower, you think that. I probably should have taken that one back there.
If you're like miles down track already, it's a problem like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, generally we'll have something set in mind on what I believe is going to be my next best time. And that just comes from experience.
Would you maybe let the bar out a little bit when you get to that dam or that harvester or whatever, so you can let it out a bit and have a feel around and then pull it in again? Or?
Yeah, I mean, let's say we had, like yesterday, we had a slightly crosswind pass on the right on the first leg. You might hit some lift, and instead of just going straight through it, you might turn and actually go into the wind. So, you know, we're talking about lift lining up in wind line. And that's kind of what I did on that last time yesterday before goal. I saw Steve hit a little bit of lift, and when I got to that lift, I went, I'm just going to turn right and fly to the wind and see what I get. And I just went upwind and just bubbled along until I hit the climb, and a couple of circles and reasonable lift, and then I extended the upwind leg a little bit more until I eventually hit the good climb. So you're still just having that light feeling on the bar, and I guess, yeah, just Joel Rebecca actually told me a long time ago before he passed away that stretching high is better than stretching low. And it took me a while to understand what that meant. But it makes a lot of sense when you think about it sometimes. When you get down to 1,000 feet, just about everyone's willing to take whatever they get. Whether it's 50 up, 100 up, 150 up, could be anything. The lower you get, the more willing you are to take anything. The higher you are, you're less willing to take the lighter stuff because you go, I've still got all this altitude. I'm sure there's a better climb than this 300 up, and there very well might be, but you might not find that better climb. And let's say you're going from, call it a great day, 10,000 feet. 7,000 feet, you hit this climb and it's 500 feet per minute and you think, yeah, but my last time was 1,000 feet per minute, so I think I'll just keep going. You light off, lose another 3,000 feet, now you're down to 4,000 feet and you're going, you hit 300 up and you're going, do I take that? Or should I take the 500 up that I just passed? Or do I keep gliding and hope that I get this 1,000 up that I'm hoping for? And you keep gliding and next thing you know you're down to 1,500 feet and you're scratching and you hit 200 up and you go, oh shit, alright, I better take this. Meanwhile, you should have taken that 500 up, stay a little bit higher. It would have only taken you 6 minutes to climb back up to 10 grand again. Whereas now you're down to 1,500 feet and 200 up, how long is that going to take to get back to 10 grand?
You were talking about lift lines before and flow and feel and all that. What about VG settings on the top of it? Yeah, when you're trying to fill out a lift line in a blue day, mate.
I always fly with the VG in my hand, no matter what setting it's on. Preferably when I'm on glide and I'm on full rope, that way I can release it at any point in time if I don't like the air that I'm in. And most times I will actually release, let's say about that much of it before I think I'm about to hit a thermal. A, it just adds a lot of safety to the glider, for turbulent air, and B, it gives me a little bit more feel on the glider itself. And adds just a little bit more bar pressure, and I just feel the air a little bit better. So I guess I feel like I can find the thermal a little easier if I'm not on full VG. Just gives me a little bit more handling. I can relax a little bit more and just try to feel that, I guess, where the thermal might be. You were talking about lift lines just before, and something I learned from Neil Halsell, I don't know, probably 8-10 years ago, we were flying here, actually, for me it seems to have happened in this area here. We were coming along these hills to the turn point, maybe a Kudgee, and I was struggling on some really low, shitty hills, and Neil Halsell just kept flying, and he kept rising, and I'm circling here, and Neil's still going straight, and still going up, and anyway, we both ended up getting to goal, but I said, what were you doing, you know, why were you going that way? And Neil was saying that, well, it's just a lift line, and I was just going straight, and just kept going straight, and he was still going up, so why turn it? I think, was that your reasoning?
Well, it seems like it's well this year. Kept expanding into the direction I was going and realising that this continuum was going up. That might have been...
I think you might have even adapted that a bit from gliding, perhaps? So that might have been your reasoning at the...
I think I was fairly high and I think I will just take it. Heading direction, but just keep on going. It wasn't planned. I don't think I've experienced that again. So.
Okay. Well, because I think a couple of years after that, I was flying off the end of Mitta to that turn point at Cudgee West, and Steve Crosby did exactly the same thing. Just kept flying straight and going up and up and up. So I followed him and got the turn point at Cudgee West, and then straight back to goal and didn't turn that whole way. So, I don't know whether it happens to you very often, but it's certainly down down that southern end of this valley, whether there's some convergence there or I'm not sure.
Shane, what percentage of your thermals take you to cloud base? If you kind of know what I mean, like, do all your thermals take you up, or?
I guess if you pick the right ones, they do. I like to think that the ones I'm picking are going to take me to cloud base. I might not take them to cloud base because they've slowed down. A lot of times, you know, the thermal might peak from 2,000 foot to 5,000 foot, and base might be 7,000 foot. You know, you get days where it's quite strong down low, and then it starts to weaken as you get close to cloud base. And you know, if I see something, I guess that's as good as what I'm in, potentially better in front of me, and I've got the height to get there, I'll normally just go. I know a lot of people have said that that's really helped them out. You know, you see a gator gliders turning in front of you, and you kind of monitor them, and you're going, well, they're climbing as good as I am. I can reach them. So I might as well leave what I'm in, go for them. Because you might even find something even stronger between where you are and where they are. And if not, you've got another thermal that's already marked for you on course line, hopefully. And it's just one step closer to goal, you know. So yeah, it's not always about getting to cloud base. Obviously it depends on what you're flying, and sometimes I notice flying paragliders a lot more, you want to stay high because you just don't have that glide that you do on a hang glider. Although he's probably the opposite, he's probably got a better glide on his paraglider than he does his hang glider. But yeah, you know, it really depends on what you're flying, and just knowing where you can get to with the performance of glider that you've got. So yeah, you know, there's some days I'll fly, you know, we had task at Forbes last week, did 200 k's and got the cloud base once. And you know, there was clouds probably 80% of the day. But it's just never going right to base because another good cloud formed and it's time to go. Yeah, I mean, how long does it take to do a circle?
Feels like about 45 seconds, perhaps.
20 to 30 seconds, depending on your bank angle. So when you look up there and you zoom in on some of these little circles, you can see how much time you spend circling. So one way to start flying faster around the course is do less circles. If we can do 10 less circles, that's 3 minutes. No, yeah, no, I can't calculate.
Half a minute each.
Half a minute each circle.
5 minutes.
5 minutes for 10 circles.
I wonder how many circles I got on my final following Daisy yesterday that added some more.
You look at this for yesterday?
I got distracted by Jason's cat coming back from the lighthouse. And I was wondering, why are we still climbing? And then it ended up with a 4-to-1 glide to get to goal.
He was going back to the town.
He was going back to town. And I'm gone.
Yeah, just that last climb there. That one there. How many circles have we got in that?
Count them, count them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I'd
I'd say at least 12 circles. Probably 12 circles.
Yeah.
And you didn't need them.
Back earlier that I could have shed.
Yeah, you certainly didn't
another
need.
10 to 12 back earlier as well.
Yeah, so you know, potentially that's. You know, that's. Call that 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. And probably doesn't good. How do you pick your, if you're going for final and your glide numbers, what do you use for going, 12 to 1 on a good chance at that? Do you have any fixed numbers in your head? Or are you looking at the glide you got on the way to the last turn point? Is that as the reference? Or do you just rely on the instrument and say, you've got this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a bit hard yesterday because we didn't have any legs that were really going the same direction as what the last leg was.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe the first one, would probably be the similar direction. Obviously, 10 to 1 is a pretty good number on, like, I say no wind, like pretty safe. A little bit of headwind, maybe 8 to 1. Stronger headwind, but you just zoom out a little bit there.
But he's talking about a topless for people that aren't flying topless.
Yeah. So, I mean, you did a little bit of a glide back from that lighthouse turn point before you hit that climb there, the first one. Yeah. Even though you weren't really pointing at goal, you might have had some idea what sort of LD you were getting over the ground, even though it's a short glide. One thing to remember is, we have all these fancy instruments that say, oh, you're going to arrive at 1,000 feet above goal. I normally have my altitude at best glide to goal and altitude at waypoint, or altitude at goal. And I kind of try to trust those as much as I can. Every now and again they let you down. Generally more likely to be let down when, let's say your margin is very little. Let's say it's 200 feet you're going to make goal by, and you're on a 10 kilometre final glide. 5 kilometre final glide. The chances of hitting sink on that whole glide could be pretty good. If you're on a 10 kilometre final glide, the chance of hitting sink the whole way is probably less likely. So you'll probably find that your numbers are going to even out a lot more on a longer distance than on a short final. So whenever it's a short final, like yesterday was 11 kilometres, I mean, it's still a fair way. So you're probably going to find that your numbers even out over that distance. But obviously we weren't getting that high yesterday, so the thermal spacing is a bit closer together. You do it on a day 10,000 feet and you're at 5,000 feet and it says you're going to make goal and you're 10 k's away, there's a good chance you could hit sink all the way to goal. And those numbers just going, and all of a sudden you find yourself having to stop and scratch sort of goal to make it, and you're left 500 up time because the instrument said, oh, you got it. Not always the case. So final glides, A, you can make up a lot of time on a final glide, and B, you can lose a lot of time on a final glide. And C, you can blow the final glide, lose a lot of points. So, yeah, it's a fine line of wasting time climbing to that extra altitude when you don't need it. But being short and having to find another whole climb, trying to centre the climb, get back up again, redo the hole, looking at your instruments, every circle, have I got enough height this time to make goal? There's days where I've done 3 final glide attempts. And you blow all 3 of them and then you're on your 4th attempt and you're going, oh, I can't believe this. You're supposed to learn from your mistakes the first time. So it's not uncommon. And I'm not alone doing it, I know that much. But yeah, I think it just comes down to knowing your instrument, knowing, obviously looking at the sky too. Yesterday there was a few clouds and still some good sources of left line, ground sources for thermal triggers and stuff. Straight line back from the, on the final leg. So, I was half tempted to trust my instruments, but I don't think I would have got there in the get-go. So, I decided to edge on the side of caution. But yeah, it's, you can see this 10 circles essentially just cost you 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes can cost you 100 points. I lost the World Championships by 100 points. Could have been 5 circles over 10 days of flying. When it comes down to that close, you start looking back at every one of your flights and you go, shit, I just flew 10 days and I lost by 100 points. You look at your track logs and you go, there's at least 5 track logs there where I wasted at least 5 minutes on each given day, maybe 10. And you add that up and you go, that's like 350 points worth of score there that I wasted. But in saying that, other days you did really well by trusting in your own self and maybe winning the day and getting a lot of points back too. So you sort of have to trust in your own self and basically just try to learn from your own mistakes, because that's the only way you're going to do it. Or, the beautiful thing about competition is a lot of times you get to learn from other people's mistakes as well. So you don't just have to make them yourself. Now,
I've just got a suggestion. Ever since the 16th line has got fully lately, and one of the things I find is that sometimes you don't get to use the instruments like on that science ride when you just know what's going on. It's only you constantly start to see these numbers which is really clear. You haven't made goal, you never really have a deal with how you get there and the rides that you need. So what we do at Roxy and what we encourage is every day you set a task, and you set a task that gets you back to a point. So you're practicing this final glide, just in your little flying, and you're getting to see how your instrument works, and even on tracking days, just seeing if you can get the numbers and,
I bet you, Neil, in the last, that helps a lot. In the last 6 years, probably, I've made that up.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had one single day I've gone flying and not set a task.
Yeah.
Like I literally don't fly like that.
It's not hard to just set up, even if it's unachievable, if you see what's going to work.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, most of us heard that here. I don't know about Facebook Live, but Neil was just talking about setting a task every day you go flying, and I was talking about that on the last one about landing and doing spot landings every time you land. Setting up an approach, picking a field, saying that's where I want to land. Yesterday my spot was Andy. He was in the paddock with the camera, so I said, alright, well here's my spot. I'm going to see if I can hit him. I got reasonably close, but I missed him still. But yeah, so not just landing, but every day you take off, set yourself a task if you're free flying. Go, I'm at Corryong, but okay, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to that turn point, that one, I'm going to land by the river and get up, do the task, work your final glide, and as much as we all just love flying and learning, you're going to learn more from that flight when you actually set yourself a goal and try to achieve it, and it becomes like a competition task for you really. So yeah, that's a good point now.
I've had a bunch of days like in WA where everyone wants to just do open distance, and I'm not interested in personally because I'm not going to practice the final glide that way. I reckon I'm going to get more value out of that than is training if I practice the final glide every day. So I'd rather set a goal, and if I land and they fly for another 2 hours, good on them, but I got to final glide practice. I think that's worth well.
Try to final glide to the sun.
Do what?
To the sun.
Yeah. Well, then you're not using your instruments, so. Hey, Doug, I got another video question. How much do you think the glide actually changes between, on a top lift, between say full BG and 3/4 and half? And then I guess the other part of that question is, when you're pulling more or less rope, do you think of it as I'm changing my glide ratio, or do you think of it as I'm changing my trim speed for the speed I want to fly? You know, so it's kind of different.
I like to think that I'm pulling the rope to increase my performance. I don't, it's not so much about the trim speed for me, but...
So you're thinking about glide ratio?
Yeah.
Okay. And how much do you think that changes then between full, 3/4 and half?
I think between 3/4 and full there's a little bit of difference. 3/4. I don't know how much 3/4. I'd say like halfway between 3/4 and full, there's very little difference. Probably a little bit more, but having that halfway point between 3/4 and full adds a tremendous amount more safety to your glider in turbulent air. So whenever it gets turbulent, I will always back it off from full to somewhere between 3/4 and full, just because it adds just that bit more safety. And you know, it's hard to get performance when you get knocked around, and when you're on full tight BG, a lot of times you get turned or something, and just trying to get the glider straight and flying where you want it to again, you lose more than you do if you were on a less BG setting and able to maintain your course line. Half BG, I mean, it probably depends on what glider you're flying, on how big the BG range is, but I'd say you're probably 70% of your potential at half BG. Is my guess.
Maybe you lose the glide point or two?
Yeah.
So are you using full BG on course between thermals or just on final?
No, on course between thermals, full BG. Definitely on the Gecko. The light speed on, you know, give or take 6 inches of full BG at the time. Yeah, it just depends on how the air is. You know, if you got nice smooth air on glides, full BG is good. There's a lot of days at Ford last week where we just getting our ass kicked on glides. You know, I left one cloud, I got clouds up. I left it, you know, I was probably doing 100k an hour below base. I got to the edge of the cloud and it was only probably 3/4 rope because I was busy trying to pull the rope on and get out of there before I got sucked up. I got to the edge of the cloud and I got one wire slap where I nearly lost the bar, followed by 2 more of them in a row. So, and I actually had quite a sore neck the next day. I think I got a bit of whiplash. So yeah, it was just like kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. And we had a lot of rough air, just mixing air, trying to bit shearing, different wind directions and things there. So fine on those sort of days, it's not really that helpful to have full rope, just because you're just working so hard. You know, we were doing 5+ hours a day and trying to control the glider when it's on full rope and in rough air is not a lot of fun. So I'd rather have a little bit less, and especially going tailwind, the performance difference is probably very, very little. But you gain a lot more control and you save yourself a lot of energy by just having a bit less BG on.
Yeah. What about in the flatlands and maybe there's a little bit of wind? Yeah, some people have this vertical thermal model and some people have this slanting thermal model. And in all the reading material you can pretty much find 50-50 what to read about. I know Attila says he thinks they're all vertical and they just look like this on your track lock with the wind. Sometimes I find the lift here. I don't know, what's your theory? Vertical or slanted?
Well, Yeah, I've never really had a firm belief on that myself, but
Everyone's got a different opinion, it seems to me.
let's say the wind's blowing from this direction now, and we got our ground source there, and we got a thermal going up. Let's say it's straight up.
It's inside you,
Yeah, yeah, and you're coming in, and you hit the thermal here, and you're climbing in the thermal. Obviously, by the time you top out, you know, it's going to seem like you're doing that.
Seem like it, yeah.
Yeah. But in realistically, the thermal is also travelling across the ground. So it might be travelling that whole way, and you're just staying in that column as it's moving its way through the ground.
So that's the vertical thermal model.
So that's the vertical thermal model. Whereas people, they look at their track logs and they go, yeah, but I hit the thermal there and I drifted, and it was definitely on the angle. But it doesn't mean the thermal's actually tilted over. You know, you obviously, you know, you see a guy up here turning and you're coming in, and a lot of times you hit the lift before you get to him, and you go, oh, well, I'm upwind of him. That makes sense. You know, the thermal's on a bit of a slope, but I don't know. There's
I mean, the people that believe in the vertical thermal camp, they're going to tell you just come in underneath the gaggle too. And if it's not there, it's probably broken off, right? But then the people in the other camp say, well, maybe it's upwind, right?
I personally believe the stronger the thermal, the more upright it is.
Okay.
The weaker the thermal, the more likely it's going to be drifting, slanted over if there's wind.
Okay.
That's kind of what I believe.
So maybe it's just somewhere in between that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you got a strong updraft and you got a lot of wind going against it. The bigger, the stronger the thermal is, the less chance of that wind, you know, the wind follows at least half of the resistance. So the more chance that wind is just going to be blocked by that thermal going up and just flow around it, and the more chance of that thermal staying straight up. When you've got a light thermal and it's not that solid, there's not that much mass in it, the more chance that wind is going to push that thermal over.
Yeah. If you come in underneath the gaggle and you don't get it, you think you're going to spend much time going upwind to look, or you think you're just going to keep going? Maybe it's a crosswind lick.
Depends on my altitude. Generally, if I think, you know, if I'm coming below a gaggle, it means I'm behind, and it's probably not the first time I've been behind on the day because they've been in front of me, so I may have come in below them in the thermal just before that, and I might have gone, oh, well, the thermal was a little bit upwind of where they were circling last time, so I'm going to dive into a similar area to where I think, you know, it should be relative to where it was last thermal that I had below them. If I don't get it there, I'll probably keep going downwind, and you know, I might find that it's a stronger thermal, and all of a sudden,
so maybe it's more vertical.
It's more vertical, you know.
While we're at Big Pay Week, we were watching some really big dusties go. Some of them were going up like 1,000 feet going across, you know, another 200 feet, then going back up on a funny angle. And you're thinking, how the hell is that? You know, probably the same thing with them.
Sure,
you know, it was a really strong day though. You know, it's just, you think, well, how the hell can that happen? And I'm thinking, you know, why can't thermal see the same thing? They're usually on the outside of the thermal anyway.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of theories to everything. I don't think everything is as you read in a textbook. I think there's a lot more to learn just by flying and experiencing all different conditions and trying to make your own judgment on the day and what the conditions have in store for you. Getting to know the day, and I talked about this a little bit last time, was trying to understand the weather on the day before you start the course. I find very important because it's going to save you time while you're on course. Trying to figure out where the thermals are, like what side of the clouds they're coming from, or you know, whether it's just breaking off the high points of the mountains. You get low, you might find that the climbs are pretty slow up to 4,000 or 5,000 feet, and then above that they're quite strong. So you go, well, okay, I don't want to get low. I want to stay above 4 or 5 grand because that's where the strongest climbs are for the day. Or if I do get low, be prepared that I'm going to have to take a weak climb and I might get to 5,000 feet, and I found last time when I went a little bit downwind or a little bit this direction, the thermal kicked and it went doubled in strength. And you know, you might hit that little altitude and a bunch of people take off because they go, I'm sick of this, it's too light, I'm high enough, I can get the next climb, and you just move over a little bit to where you got up last time, and all of a sudden you hit the strong climb as they glide off, and they say, well, how'd you get so high? We left that climb and it was no good. And you go, yeah, well, I paid attention earlier on in the day. So yeah, trying to learn all these little things on every day is important before you start, I think, just to save yourself time on course.
You were saying earlier on that you don't launch until you can see the thermal. The air is clear. I can't see thermals. So what are the signs that you look for before you launch?
Obviously depends on where I'm at. Elliott's hard because you can't really see much from there. You're kind of on the edge of the mountain and you're in a tree slot, so you can sort of see a nice view out in front of you. But that's not generally where we're getting the thermal. But in saying that, you're standing on the hill, there's no wind, all of a sudden the trees start moving and the cycle comes through, and that lasts for a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden it goes dead again, and you sit there for another 5 minutes, and all of a sudden the trees start to rustle again, and you go, well, maybe this is a good time to take off, because this is the next cycle, you know. You take off and there's more likely going to be a thermal there, versus running off when there's no wind, you're just in the down cycle. Then you've got to take off and try to hunt the thermal down. So it's not every day you can. I'm not saying that I just look out and go, oh, there's my thermal right there. But there's definitely things that you can look out for and try to work out if there's going to be lift for you or where you might go. Have a plan of attack. First thing we learn when we start hang gliding or flying in general is to have a flight plan. It might be as simple as having your target on launch, doing a nice, good takeoff, flying straight out, getting to the LZ or the landing field with 500 feet, so you can get a good look at the windsock, setting up a good approach and having a good landing. And that might extend as your experience gets more to trying to find that first climb. And some people have done that this week. They've had their first thermals, got to the cloud base for the first time, made their first goals, and you generally find that the flight plan is always there, or it should always be there. And the one thing that should never change on the flight plan is a good takeoff and good landing. Everything else in between is just a bonus. And it's just that we extend that. We just keep adding to that flight plan as you get more experience. But certainly having that good takeoff and good landing is definitely the priority for every flight. And then you just set yourself bigger task and add to that flight plan. Hubert?
Yes.
You have a question?
Do I?
Most likely. You've been sitting there thinking about one, I know.
No, I was just listening. The information that you're giving all of us, it's awesome. I mean, and if people just take away one piece of information from what they've learned today and hopefully apply it tomorrow, then that's why we're here. And it really is more a beginner focused comp, hopefully. If people can take away from that, then that's awesome.
So one thing I haven't really touched on, Pupsuck, is awareness. I believe that's probably one of my biggest strengths in flying, is being aware of your surroundings. I know Neil mentioned a little bit about it today at the briefing. We were just having a lovely old chat at goal, as you do yesterday, telling everyone how good we all are. And I was just talking about how switchy the wind conditions were when I was coming in, and the windsockets were all different directions. And yeah, I just glanced over the shoulder and I saw the trees all rustling, and I'm like, hold on a second, bit of a dust devil coming through. Yeah. And you know, if I didn't notice that, could have been a chance that a lot more gliders went flying in the air yesterday and got destroyed. Mick had just got to his in time. But yeah, like being aware of your surroundings, especially while you're flying, it's good. Like I like to know where everyone is. I like to know how many pilots I'm flying with. As a guess, how many people are sitting in this room right now? 26.
One off.
26 plus me, see? Close. I wasn't counting myself. But it's good to, and that's something you can practice on the ground every single day. You don't even need to go flying to make that skill better. You know, it's funny, you listen to witnesses of a car crash or of something, and you interview 5 different people, and one says it was a white car, one said it was a red car. It wasn't a car at all, it was a motorbike. And everybody has a different memory of what happened. But if you can be certain about A, who you're flying with, it gives you an idea on who you might want to follow. You know, some people said, oh, that was you in the get-go. I didn't think that was you because you were so far behind. It happened. That's why I didn't follow you, because I didn't think it was you. But it's nice, you know. Hang gliders are very easy to know. Like when I was younger, I used to know everyone's glider, every colour, everything. So that way I just knew exactly who everyone was in the sky. And it's easy to do. You just walk around launch, see people setting up, look at their undersurface, see where they're flying.
Especially at the top surface, isn't it?
They all look the same. Especially if there's other pilots. Day one, you see yourself on the results and you go, oh, all these pilots in my area, you know, maybe we're in similar sort of knowledge, you know, maybe we fly about the same. So let's go check out their glider tomorrow, let's see what they're flying, and that way if I'm up with them, I know what they look like, and they beat me the day before, so maybe they might know a little bit more than I do, and maybe not necessarily follow them, but maybe I'll keep an eye on them and see what decisions they're making, and see why I'll try to figure out why they're going where they're going. One thing I'm a fan of is making decisions for yourself. Sometimes the decision can be exactly the same as the person next to you. But if you don't agree with someone's decision, don't follow them. You might find out later that you made the wrong decision and their decision was the right one. But if you go, I don't know why they're going over there, I don't think I'll do that, I'm going to go do my own thing, and I think that's what I think is the right thing to do. 10 minutes later you're going to know what was right and what was wrong. But without building that self-confidence in your own self, you're just going to end up following people all the time and living off their own decisions because you can't make your own. But in saying that, sometimes it's good to follow the right people. I've said this many times, and there's certain days, you know, especially when it comes to the top pilots traveling around the world and flying with them, there's certain pilots that are good in certain conditions. You know, I get a cloud day, a good racing cloud day, and I just go, okay, well, there's, you know, for me, that's one of my strengths. I think I'm going to do well on this day, but there's also a handful of other pilots that I'm going to keep a very good eye out on, because I know they're going to do very well on today as well. And then the next day might be a blue day, and I go, well, this is not one of my strong points. I don't really like flying in the blue. I'm out at Forbes, I'm in the flatlands. Who do I think is good at racing in the blue skies? And I'm going to go, oh, you know, Guy Hubbard. He loves flying in the blue. I'll keep an eye on him today and just watch what he does, because you know, a lot of days he might win comp days when it's all blue skies, big air and blue skies. So sometimes you can pick your horse before you take off, and it might not just be one; it might be 3 or 4 different people that you just try to keep an eye on. And I like to keep an eye on them all day long if I can. Preferably from above.
So when you were starting out in hang gliding, what pilots did you used to follow? You know,
everyone. Yeah, I was at the back all the time. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I guess when I first started competing, my main goal was just to make goal every day. I learned that, at least back then, if you made goal every day, you had a good chance of winning competition. You know, it was that simple, or you'd place on the podium. You know, there's days that only a handful of people made goal out of 100. And if you were one of them and you made goal every single day, you had a good chance of being right up at the top. And yeah, so I kind of learned that it was very important to make goal every day to do well. And until I started making goal every day, I didn't worry about speed or anything. I would literally look at the course, look at when I could take off, look at the conditions, and go, I think it's a 3 or 4 hour course for me. I want to land, or the weather says it's going to be bad by 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I want to be on the ground by then. So it looks like I need to start by 1 o'clock to make the task for me. So on the top guys end, when they're going, it's a 2 hour task, 2.5 hours, I'll maybe start at 2 o'clock, finish by 4:30. But I knew for myself, with my skill, that it was going to take me an extra hour and a half. So I'll start before them. I'll let them come racing through me, watch them for a couple of thermals, try to tag along if I can, and then slowly try the rest of the way to go until I get there.
Hangies are usually always the last time, whatever you start, you don't have the start gates?
No, normally we have start gates.
Oh yeah.
It's really this comp.
Yeah. Very rarely, if we have a windy day, sometimes we'll have a lap time with no lead points, but pretty rarely do we do that. Normally we have a start gate.
What's the point of a start gate, by the way?
It's so that you're racing in the same air.
Okay, gotcha.
So, like, let's say 2 days ago, Pete had already made goal before we started, and the conditions were a lot better earlier on that day than they were when we started at 4:30. So it doesn't really make a fair competition as far as trying to race against people, in different conditions. It's like going out and trying to race a Formula 1 car around a wet race track versus someone who gets it in nice and dry and when it's really hot, It's just not the same game. So the idea of a start gate is that you start all together and see who can get there the fastest from the one start.
How big do the gaggles get in the hang glider?
Depends how many people are in the competition.
So that's just like paragliding to be very close.
No, paragliding because the performance is so much less. Everything just stays bunched up a lot more.
Yeah.
So, you know, the start gaggle might be big, but 2 thermals into the course, that's already split into 2 or 3 different gaggles.
Well, I think it's paragliding.
But it happens less. There's normally, you know, the paragliding gaggle stays quite big all the way through because it's so hard to get away from each other because you don't have that, you all glide on full speed bar and no one can go fast. You like, there's just no difference really unless you go for a really long glide when others stop and you get low and you get that booming climb and you get away. But yeah, it's a lot harder in paragliders to make that separation away from the gaggle than it is in hang glide. Plus you have all those bloody fluoro colours and you can't be missed. You know? So bright, paragliders. Hang gliders were very stealthy.
I have no idea how you guys are able to keep track of who's doing the sky. This, to me, it's impossible.
Just need to practice on the ground.
And I found my awareness to be able to look at the whatever, anything, because everything to me, it's like my brain is already overloaded. I'm just controlling the glider. I don't have any capacity.
How about when you paraglide?
No.
I know, but I'm just saying, when you're paragliding, you're in the thermal and you're not thinking about anything.
I don't think of flying in the paragliding.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I
So
guess
that'll come with hang gliding, you just...
But I can say that my awareness came right back in at the pub. I noticed probably right away. So my brain capacity came in already.
So you're noticing only one thing. You got to look at everything.
That was fun last night.
Any other questions? Yes.
How do you deal with fatigue getting towards the end of the day? You've had a hard night, you might have hung around the start gate for an hour, struggling away, and then you get on course and you just find that towards the end of it, when you really need to concentrate, it might be getting a bit doughy and you start to drift off. Your concentration starts to wane.
Well, you might have launched really early in the day and been flying for 11 hours or something.
Yeah. What's, I know that's one of my biggest problems is getting towards the end. I just start to, I find that I'm thinking about things that I shouldn't be thinking about.
Looking down at that.
Yeah, I definitely. I'm thinking about it over that right now, actually, yeah. What's, have you got any particular, other than trying to get enough sleep and not drinking a shitload the night before and eating well and all that sort of stuff? So, what? Yeah, I know, that's what some people do.
Yeah, I think dealing with fatigue, you know, people have their own ways of dealing with it, not just in the air, but on the ground. I think
you start off with a hangover, it actually gets better through the day.
That's a true story. Sometimes flying hungover is some of the best results I get. I think it's because I don't think very much. I just let the natural instinct take over.
I have something in common with Johnny.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't feel like I get fatigued when I fly. Maybe because I'm a lot more relaxed in the sky.
Do you have a snack or anything like that? Do you
No.
take a snack? No.
No, like I've probably drunk 500 mils of water this whole comp.
Wow.
So I don't even drink much water.
So is it just water or Gatorade or something?
Well, I think it's water. Might be vodka.
Because then you're getting hangover when you fly. It's getting better.
No, if you keep drinking, you don't get hungover. Yeah. No, yeah, just a little bit of water normally. Even on my long flight, I probably drunk a litre of my Camelback in the 11 hours. Oh, he's playing Facebook Live over there on me. Quite disturbing.
There's about a 5-second delay.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I think he said, I reckon flying it's a fitness, a bit like being able to drive a truck for 12 hours. Whatever you do, I mean, the best fitness for flying is flying, really. I mean, you probably do other exercises that might improve your arm and shoulder strength, but yeah. Oh, yeah, and Randall's that now, that would be my take.
Oh, 100%. Like, before I went and did the world records in the Great Australian Bite, Red Bull got me a trainer to go into the gym and do some training along with doing some water rescue stuff. And that literally was the first time I've been in a gym, because I have always thought that just flying, you build the muscles that you build for flying, and you just get used to it. And then I figured that going and flying at high speed for hours was a whole different set of muscles than what I'm used to doing with flying. We might do 5 to 10 minutes of high speed flying on a final glide, but when you're doing 5 hours of it, it's a little bit different. So yeah, I kind of went and had the trainer and did a lot of stuff in the gym to try and emphasize or try and figure out how I was going to fly at high speed for 5 hours like this versus the normal muscles that we use, and being a lot more relaxed, getting a thermal and being able to put the hands on the bar and have a sip of water and just relax. So yeah, that was a bit different.
And did it help?
What I actually found in the training was he broke it down for me. So he said, listen, I'm not going to tell you, you're the best in the world at what you do, and he trains a lot of the top surfers, Mick Fanning, all different athletes with Red Bull. He says, I'm not here to tell you how to do what you do, because that's what you do best. I'm here to get you fatigued and see if you can still make good decisions and things like that when you're fatigued, or how to deal with the fatigueness, because that's a big thing, is being able to make the right decisions still. And a lot of times, a lot of accidents happen from people just being exhausted and flying too many days in a row and just a little bit too relaxed and don't see a power line, or they do this or they do that, and that just comes from being fatigued and being lazy, so to speak. So yeah, he just broke things down a lot when I was training. He'd be like, you got 5 more push-ups to go. Let's do 2 now, and then we'll do another 2, and then we'll do 1. So you just break things down, and I found that really helped, because the day I did the world records over in Eucla, I was hoping to break all 3 world records while I was there in a couple of weeks, which was a 300 kilometre out and return, a 200 kilometre out and return, and a 100 kilometre out and return. And it came down to pretty much the last day of my window before I got the right conditions to do it. So I had an early start. I sort of did the calculations and thought, maybe I could get 3 world records in one day. So I actually started a little bit too early, because I was right at the beginning of the southerly front that came through, basically. I decided I'd do the 300 kilometre flight first, because I wanted to, that was probably the easiest one to achieve, because I think Rowan had the record, and it was not that fast compared to the 100 and the 200 kilometre one. So I thought, oh well, I'll do the 300 because it gives me the best chance of breaking a world record. So I started with that one. Things were going really well until I outran the southerly front, and I soon found myself at 100 metres on the cliffs of Eucla with nothing but the Great Australian Bight below me, with no whitecaps on the ocean. And I had done, as I said, I had a trainer and I'd done a bunch of pool training with my equipment. So he would basically throw me in the pool and all my flying equipment zipped up, and I would have to, he would actually hold me down under the water on top of me on the harness to simulate the glider being on top of me, and I had to get out of my harness and swim away. And the first time I would have died. Second time was better, but after 4, 5, 6 times of going in there, I was, a few weeks later I was probably getting out of my harness and swimming 20 metres up the pool. But the first time I didn't even get out of my harness before I had to come up. So, doing things like that and taking that time to learn the steps of what I needed to do for a situation that actually happened on my flight, despite being 100% prepared. I had a rescue chopper, which had a diver in there to rescue me from the water. And I asked him how he got his job. He said, "I'm the fastest swimmer in Australia." That sounds promising. I said, "So how's that work?" He goes, "Basically, they'll fly me alongside you, I jump out of the chopper and swim for you." Okay. So I was pretty confident. Went through all the whole plan, how water rescue is going to work, everything like that. The time that I got low on the ridge and there was no wind, the bloody chopper was refueling. So it was stuck refueling because we'd been flying for whatever it was, 2.5 hours. And we had literally 44 gallons of fuel placed along the Eucla highway so that the chopper could go and refuel along the course line. But yeah, it just happened to be that moment where I was down and out, and I actually undid some of my leg loop buckles, preparing for the water.
You were 100 metres above the ridge?
No, I was at ridge high.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, I mean, I had obviously a split-second decision where I was like, I can go and land on top. Not going to be the nicest landing, probably, but be alright. But I know there's a pretty bad road right behind the ridge. Or commit to achieving a world record and committing to the ridge that I'm going to stay up. I chose the ridge not knowing that the helicopter was refueling at the time. I thought he was still chasing me until I looked around and realised that he wasn't there. So yeah, it was a little bit hair-raising for quite a few minutes there on the ridge. And it was probably 10 kilometres before my turn point. So I was a long ways away from anywhere. But I kind of just stayed on the ridge in the one spot, and because I knew that front was coming, so then I just waited for that wind to come back again, and then I just went slowly with the front to the turn point, and then I was able to race back to the finish line again. But yeah, it was over 5 hours that flight for a 300k, and I literally landed and had a little rest, a little chat to the camera, had a Red Bull, had a sandwich, and then I decided I'd go for another little Red Bull, so took off again. And I kind of looked at the day and decided that I probably wasn't going to get the 2 more flights in, which was another 200 and another 100k flight. And I was pretty worn out, so I decided I'd just do the 100k one even though it was the hardest one to break. Yeah, so I took off and went to the 100k speed record, and there was a extremely fast, blazing run down the cliff, and that is one of the memorable flights that I didn't mention the other day. You know, I did it in I think an hour and 5 minutes. I did one turn, which was the turn point, I did a 180. So yeah, I did 90 something k's an hour, average over 100 k's. I think it was 91.8 k an hour or something.
Did you change your hang point forward or something? Did you make any noise? Just the jig work. How many knots? That's a stock standard light speed, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, it was my comp glider, yeah.
How many knots?
Oh, it was like 25 knots. Yeah, it was quite strong. The thought did cross my mind when I landed from that one. I had fun with the 200, but the chop had run out of fuel, so Red Bull itself was not that keen on me going for another flight without the rescue chopper. That was the other reason I did the 100, was they said they had enough fuel to go that distance, but not enough for me to do the 200. So I nearly convinced them. I probably had enough daylight left to do the 200, but you know, even on that 100k flight, you know, talking about breaking things down when you get fatigued, and you know, it's 50k's to the turn point, 50k's back, and my arms were quite sore already after the 5.5 hours of the first flight. Well, I won't mention that I towed up. I think I towed for nearly 40 minutes on my first flight. Because I actually towed to my start point instead of launching off the cliff. So yeah, I think it was a 35-40 minute tow. Yeah, it's close there behind the Dragonfly. So it was quite a marathon tow just to start the 5-hour mission. It warmed up those muscles of having to hold the bar in for that long, you know. So yeah, just breaking that flight down at the end, just going, oh, just do another, it's only 25 more k's to the turn point. Once I got the turn point, I'm like, shit, it's only taking me just over 30 minutes to get here. Like, and I'll do another 10 k's, and then it's just like another 10 k's, and just breaking it down into smaller sections. Just making that goal more achievable when you get tired, I think helps a lot. It's kind of what I learned through the training was just going, oh, you know, it's not 50k they got left, it's just another 10. When you get to that 10, you go, only another 10. So it's just kind of just moving that goalpost a little bit more to achieve that goal that you're looking for, I guess. So yeah, that was one thing I learned about fatigue anyway, was just set yourself shorter goals and just keep moving dangling that carrot in front of you. Yeah.
I did the 100-day out in France, and I think it took me, this is my Enterprise Wings Foil Combat 2 in under about 6 hours. So, a long time ago.
I think I was an hour and 6 minutes from memory. Yeah, it was good fun. Nice place to fly, but still one of the scariest flights we'll have down there. For sure. I mean, you can get high, you can get 500 feet, 600 feet above the ridge and cruise. And if you get low, you can just go and land, but yeah, if you're racing down a ridge high, it's quite exciting. Any more questions?
If you're going on land, you've got a rescue helicopter for us. You'll be miles from
And that just take a little bit longer to get there. Yeah, they just take about a day to get there, I think. Yeah, Euclid is a population of 30 people. And we did have a hang glider pilot land down there once. An Irish woman, not the Irish, they say. She landed somehow on the rocks below the cliffs in Euclid. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And just so lucky that the SES was having a training day. So they had people from all over the Euclid. for this training day, and they got the phone call to use their training in real life. Then they abseiled down off the front of a bull bar of a car, and yeah, got her up off the cliff. And,
put her back again and have another go?
no, she didn't fly again there. No, the fire that was enough for her.
You need the bladder?
No, I think the story was that we got down there and said, oh, we come to strong luck, did you take the glider first?
Yeah.
That was what happened.
Good answer, yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
He wasn't leaving a glider at the bottom of the pool.
She knew if she went up first, they went down back to the glider, so she asked them to take the equipment up first, just to just hang out for a while, until they came back down. But yeah, it's a 300-foot cliff and up and down, so they did an amazing job to get her out of there, and she did an amazing job to survive. I look down there and it's not a place you want to be anywhere along those cliffs. So yeah, it's a bit of fun. Another question?
So she didn't crash, obviously. She landed.
Yeah, she arrived. I think it wasn't hurt, no.
I think occasionally when you're flying along the cliff, you can see like a house block of land has just gone, and so there's these lumps of dirt that are at the bottom of the cliff, which don't have a flat top on them, they might be on an angle or something, you have to land away there. So it's just getting lower, off below the lid, I think flying back and forwards as you're losing height down that thing and pump yourself there. So it's very, very light. This is why you're practicing spot landing, yeah?
Yeah, it's good to be able to spot land in a place like that, that's for sure. Good news is the rain's about to stop. Rain always gets heavier before it gets lighter. True story. Blue sky out there? Window down in Isla. Oh, that can't be too much fun for a little Isla to do.
That is to get involved with Red Bull. Did they approach you, or did you approach them?
It's actually quite a good story. I feel like I just told this story not long ago.
I think I just heard it not too long ago.
Sorry. Where was that?
On the Club Ismail.
Oh, it was on the podcast. That's where it was. Yeah.
Club Ismail.
Yeah, so I'll do a quick version of it. Red Bull first came out in Australia and they saw the commercials of Red Bull Gigs of Wings, and I was just like, oh, I was young, like 19, 20 or something, and I thought, oh, that'd just be the perfect sponsor, you know, they could sponsor me, I could travel the world with thank God for living my life. Happy days. About a year later, I got an email from Red Bull saying how they'd been watching me and scouting me, and they were interested in sponsoring me, and I was like, oh my God, dreams come true. It took me a little while to respond to the email because I was a little bit nervous and shaky and didn't know what to say. And I eventually responded, and the next day I got another email back and exchanged a few emails. And then at dinner one night, the whole family was very intrigued on whether I'd got another email from Red Bull. And it turned out that it was my young sister who set up an email account. And, she was about 11, I think, so that was pretty funny. And I guess the rest of the family was in on the whole thing. Well, let's just say my dream got shut down pretty fast when I discovered that it wasn't actually Red Bull that I was speaking to the whole time. And,
Redbull@yahoo.com or
it was
AOL.com.
Hotmail, yeah, it was Redbull@hotmail.com. You know, I I wasn't that into all the IT stuff.
Did you tell them to back her off?
Oh no, I should have after that. But yeah, there was a few words that were exchanged that night at dinner, probably that you wouldn't normally hear at a dinner table. But then a couple of years later, I was overseas, I think in Brazil, and called home and had a chat with my mum, and she was like, "Oh, you'll never believe who called today." I was thinking, "Oh, I wonder who that is." "Oh, Red Bull." I was like, "Oh, yeah." Yeah. We've been here before, haven't we? Is there the rest? Are we on speakerphone? The rest of the family there? And she's like, "True story. I've got the number. You can give them a call. They want you to do some event in Brazil." And she started laughing. She's like, "Oh, it's like a triathlon with hang gliding." She goes, "You got to do like a 2.5K ocean swim and a 50K mountain bike ride up to the takeoff and fly down and do a 24K run." I was like, "Ooh, doesn't sound like me. I don't know if I can do that, but I'll give him a call just to see if it's actually Red Bull." And turns out it was actually Red Bull. But it also turns out all I had to do was the hang gliding part. And they had the best athletes from each sport representing each country. They had the best ocean swimmer, the best hang glider pilot, the best mountain bike rider, the best runner in Australia to go and compete in this event in Brazil against all the other countries that also had all their best at the best. And it's still, to this day, one of the best events I've ever done in my life. It was right after the Athens Olympics, I think, 2004. And they got us in a room the night before the race to have a meeting, athlete meeting. And there was 350 athletes sitting in this room, and every single person was the best in their sport, their country. So you were sitting there, and Red Bull gave us a telephone and had all the athletes' phone numbers on it. But they're all pre-programmed phones that they gave each athlete. So you could dial or send a message to any one of your fans in the room. Whether it was someone that just won the gold at the Olympics or a sport you were following or whatever it might have been. So it was a pretty unique event really to sit in a room with that many athletes that literally many of them have just won gold medals or medals at the Olympics, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. And Australia being Australians, we kind of went out to party the night before. The Red Bull bosses at the time, they were pretty young party animals as well, so they were up for a party, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. Partying in Copacabana, and the Red Bull boss said to me, "Time for another drink." And I was like, "Sounds good. We've only got to get up in about 3 hours to go through this race thing." Anyway, wake up a little bit dusty. It was about 40 degrees, I think. And yeah, we had tailwind on launch, which wasn't making it very favourable for launching. But we had to fly around. We had to fly around the mountain to get to the next beach, and there was nothing but ocean. And I was the first one because Team Australia was winning up into after the swimming and the mountain bike ride. Team Australia was winning, so I was the first one on the ramp to take off, and I had a light tailwind, and they kind of pretty much said, "Your time starts now." They had like a half an hour break, but they were timing when the cyclists were finishing and the difference, and they were just taking the mileage out basically on the one difference with the teams were finishing. So they basically said, "Alright, your time starts now," and I think the glider would just land off the rain tailwind. And they said, "You should technically make it." If you get to the favelas, one of the worst favelas in Rio, and you can clear the houses, you should be able to get around the corner and get to the beach where you have the spot land. And there's probably 30 seconds on that glide where you can't see the beach on either end. And you're flying over these favelas and locals are like, don't go too low over it because you might get shot at. So there's a lot of things going through my mind as I'm probably still a little bit under the weather. Anyway, worked out, I got around, I cleared the mountain and I could see the beach at the other end. And it was pretty much a straight in final glide to a spot landing. If we didn't land on the spot, you had to get out of your glider and run 400 metres around the big blow-up things they had on the beach before you could tag your run off or finish the race. And I came in, just big ground effect along the beach, and comes from Mittamatite, it was just like, it was the biggest event in Rio, so like, the only landing space was where they had us landing. And I came in and nailed the spot. Got out of my glider and Australia ended up winning the whole event. And the other athletes, because I landed on the spot, only I think 2 or 3 of us landed on the spot out of quite a handful. Actually had 5 people end up in the ocean that didn't make it around the mountains and back to the beach. So it was quite interesting. The rubber duckies were pretty busy out there saving all the pilots. There were quite a few ground hang gliders out there and we had quite a few crashes in the crowd as well, which was pretty spectacular. Like overshooting the little arena and crashing in the crowd. Pretty spectacular. I got to watch the show because I was the first one down there. So basically after that, they said, listen, you've got all the attributes we like, you can party until the early hours of the morning, and you can still do the job that you need to do the next day. So we want to keep you on board and sponsor you. And so for the next 14 years of Red Bull, partying and flying. And doing all these fun things like the Morning Glory and going down the Euclid, breaking world records.
So did they approach you to do those things, or did you say, I've got an idea?
I had to submit 2 ideas every year. So basically try to come up with something that nobody had ever done, or break a world record, or just something unique that they sort of liked, and thought, well, that sounds like a good project, let's have a crack at that. One of the other ones is flying across Australia. Yep. So I told them it'd probably take 6 to 8 weeks. That's based on around 100 k's a day with some rest days due to bad weather and whatnot. So I had a whole route plan to fly across Australia. We looked at it several times, but the logistics of doing that was quite expensive, and spent a lot of time in the middle of nowhere out there. Just everything that they wanted with the safety and rescues and all that stuff, hospitals, and it just kind of became a bit too much, hard work to have them tick all the boxes as far as their liabilities and all that were concerned. Some of the other projects we were able to tick the boxes for. So basically just come up with projects every year to try and showcase hang gliding and Red Bull and bring it to the world. Cool. That's how Red Bull came about.
That was the brief version.
Yeah, that was the brief version. There's a lot more parties I can talk about, so we won't go there. Sorry?
Still looking at the project, you still involved?
No, not really. I'm not involved with Red Bull, but they still look after me with products and things like that. And I'm sure if I came up with something and I went to them and said, hey, what do you guys think about doing this project? It's very possible that I could still still do something with them. But I don't get the annual paycheck that I used to get from them. So yeah.
Anything high altitude? Any high altitude flying?
Not really. It's quite cold up there. I have been 18,000 feet over in Dinosaur in Colorado. So yeah, that's the highest I've been, and probably the highest I've been off the ground was out at hay, I'd say. Hay or Ford. I think I went to 16 grand at hay when I was 15. I actually towed my whole team up, it was back in the car towing days. Yeah, I might have been 14. I think I was 14. Yeah, I towed the whole team up and got them all away, and then I set my glider up and went towing as well, and I thought I'd try and make goal as well afterwards. And yeah, I did. Flew into Victoria that day, and I think I landed in Kundruk. There were two towns there on the river, Durham and Kundruk, yep. I got there, I was at 9,000 feet still, at pretty late in the day, I think it was 8 o'clock. And probably could have made gold, but it was my longest flight, I've done over 100 miles I think, and I was pretty happy with that. And I wound down over town and I saw a hang gliding car, had no radio. Didn't know where the team was. Didn't have a driver. That was alright. Didn't really care back then. Yeah, I saw a car in the petrol station. I just quickly wound down. There was a little landing field right next to the petrol station. Come in and landed. You guys got room for me? So yeah, quickly cut the glider up and managed to get a ride home. Well, but yeah, I got to I think nearly 16 grand that day. So yeah, it was pretty good. Hadn't been flying that long. I think I was on my XT. Yeah, 160 k's in the XT. So.
It's similar to a Sting.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. The rain stopped. See, it just got heavier before it stopped.
A lot heavier.
Yeah. Now it's clear. We'll probably go flying now.
Okay.
Yes.
How much of progression seen on the topless gliders over the years of performance improvement?
Oh, not much. I mean, there's little bit of performance and a little, probably more handling that have improved in the last 20 years. But you know, the real big step was the topless glider from the King Coast, really. But now something like the Gecko is much more improved on what the King Coast gliders used to be back in the day, and you know, it's almost a topless glider with a King Coast, a bit more drag. So it's you know, a lot of stuff's improved, but yeah, the top end is kind of no major improvements anyway. I don't know how they're going to get better, but they generally get just a little bit better and a little bit easier to fly. Not necessarily lighter, but I hear Rowan Holtcamp's got something on that you know, could be quite light and quite short to travel around with and perform amazing. So,
Anyone that's needed to sworn to secrecy.
Oh,
you've got to sign a bit of paper to see it.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's seen it.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't gone any bigger than 1/5. He hasn't gone any bigger than 1/5 yet, but he's tested all of the components and bits and pieces.
Okay, well there we go. That's a start. So yeah, who knows? There's always plenty of room for development. So
Why no winglets on the topless gliders?
He's got winglets.
I've got winglets.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't notice the vortices.
Yeah.
No.
You don't have smoke blowing out
No.
from your ass.
No, Aeros just chop their wings off and then they sell you extra bits to put the wings back on.
I've always had them on the XS for a while, you know?
I think some people had winglets on something back in the day.
And the old Enterprise Wings Combat used to have little, they used to have square tips, but little plastic things that slid into the end with a Velcro top and bottom.
Yeah.
So that rounded it off. They weren't open ends.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a designer. I just follow him right around.
All right, well, thank you once again so much, Jonny, for all your information and sharing with free love to all of us and the world out there. Much appreciated. Appreciation.